Well, everybody, welcome back to Hayes Tech. My name is Dave Hayes, and of course, this is the channel where we talk about pretty much anything tech. Believe me, I love tech. Now, yesterday we left off on the Akaso Brave 7LE, and I told you I was going to take it outside, put it through its paces, let you guys see all the different view forms that you could see. Right now, you're viewing this at 4K, 30 frames per second in its medium view. It has its super wide, medium, and narrow view in every single one of the different frames. Now you have 4K, 2.7K, 1080p, and then 720p. In 720p, you can do slow motion in 240 frames per second, and in 1080p, you can do slow motion in 120 frames per second. That is a lot of frames per second, so slow motion video, we're going to try to do some of that as well. So, don't go away. When we come back, we're going to go ahead and put the Akaso Brave 7LE through its paces. And as always, if you liked my video, don't forget to hit that like button and share my videos. It really helps me out. And if you're new to the channel and you like what you saw, think about subscribing. And if you subscribe, don't forget to hit that notification bell icon. That way you get a notification of my videos as soon as I release them. Okay, so we're back. I'm not going to keep this video long. Now, when I talked about this camera in the last video, I mentioned about its image stabilization. It does have 6-axis image stabilization, but that stabilization is still only electric or electronic image stabilization, meaning the processor senses where you are and crops in on that, just the same way that the GoPro Hero 7 and the GoPro Hero 8 does. And from what I can see from the video footage that I've already edited, the stabilization on this looks pretty damn good. It is not GoPro quality, but it's still pretty damn good. Man, so I did mention in my last video, of course, you know, that it had actual image stabilization inside where the lens actually moves around, and that was wrong. See, I learn as you learn. Now, I had to redo this video because the last video I did it up at the dam last night where we were fishing at, and the wind was horrendous. The wind is still here today, but it is very, very minor, small gusts. So I'm going to go ahead and do this video. I want to get it done and over with, and that way I can show you guys what the different field of views that you can expect from this Akaso and how good it looks. So let's go ahead and jump into the different fields of view that we're going to get from this Akaso Brave 7LE. One thing that I wanted to get out there also is I'm shooting in a standard picture profile. When I do the next video and I go through all of the different video settings, then I'll go ahead and show you all of the different effects that you can do, you know, like sepia, black and white, so on and so on. For the sake of doing this video, I wanted to use this camera as if I was a novice. I just bought this camera and really didn't know a lot about making changes or, you know, to my camera or anything like that. I wanted to leave it all in its original settings. So I just wanted to put that little disclaimer in there so you guys know that. So let's go ahead and get on with the video. Okay, while this is not the most optimal of recording days to do this, this is like the 4th or 5th time I've actually did this now. And I've got to take what I can get because I got to get this video out. I am now shooting in 4K, 30 frames per second, and I'm in my super wide view. Now, the one thing I wanted to bring up is image stabilization is weird on this. So when you get to the higher frame rates, and I think it's like when you're shooting at more than 60 frames per second, you know, so you can slow it down, I don't think you have image stabilization anymore. And the weird thing about this camera is once the image stabilization is turned off, you have to go into the camera manually and turn it back on again. If you don't, it stays off. That's like if I switch this to 720p by using its slow motion feature built into the camera. Whenever you use that automatic slow motion feature built into the camera, it defaults to 720p. I think it's 120 frames per second. Whenever you're done recording and you bring it back up, it stays at 720p. Check this out, guys. It's a little baby robin. Poor little guy. I wonder if I could get him in a tree. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and switch this to 4K 30 in its narrow field of view. Okay, we are down shooting at 4K 30 frames per second, and I have it set to narrow. So this is going to be the narrowest field of view that you can get out of this camera. This and medium is probably one of my go-to fields of view. I just think the super wide's a little too wide, although it's not as wide as what GoPro gives you. And again, if you want a really wide view like that, you're going to want to go with a GoPro or a camera that has a little bit more field of view. So before purchasing a camera, you want to check out what their maximum field of view is, okay? I think this one's 170 degrees. Okay, we're going to go ahead and switch to 2.7K now. Let you guys see what it looks like there. All right, we were shooting 2.7K, 60 frames per second. So we could actually slow this down if we wanted to. And I am in its widest field of view. Now, I am keeping an eye on the screen because I want my image stabilization to stay on. And at 2.7K, 60 frames per second, you still have image stabilization. So that's nice. We have image stabilization in 4K 30 and in 2.7K, 60 frames per second. So that's awesome. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a spin real quick and slow it down in post and let you guys kind of see how it looks when you slow this down. So this is 2.7K, 60 frames per second, and we're going to go ahead and slow this down. So here we go. Here's a spin. I'll wave at you while we're doing it. And now
I'll wave at you while we're doing it. And
now we'll speed that up in post. Let's go ahead and go to 2.7K, 30 frames per second, and I'm going to drop that down to the narrow field of view now. Okay, we are now shooting at 2.7K, 30 frames per second, and in its narrow field of view. This will give you an idea of the extent of its largest field of view and its most narrow field of view in 2.7K. Because I do know that when you change from 4K to 2.7K to 1080p and to 720p, those fields of view change. Some of these cameras actually crop in whenever you go higher in your pixel. So I think in 1080p it gets just a hair wider. So we're going to go ahead and drop down to 1080p now and let you guys see what this camera looks like shooting in 1080p. All right, we are now shooting in 1080p, 60 frames per second. So I can actually slow this down. Now, when you think about doing slow motion video, when you slow something down, you never want to slow it down to the point where you're getting down below 24 frames per second. If I slow this down by half, we're going to be shooting in 30 frames per second. So I don't want to slow this down more than 50%. So that's what I'll do. But they do have a mode here, and I'll wait until the end of the video to do it in. But you can record in 1080p in 120 frames per second. The same with the 720p footage. You can shoot in 720p all the way up to 240 frames per second. Again, I'll do those shots all the way at the end because I do know that once I switch to them, my image stability is going to be turned off, and I don't want to screw it up and not have that turned back on again. So again, here you are looking at 1080p, 60 frames per second, and I am in my widest field of view, just like I did with 2K. I'm going to go to the narrow field at 1080p, 30 frames per second. So right now I'm going to go ahead and do a spin and wave at you, and then I'll slow that down in post, okay?
And wave at you, and then I'll slow that down in post, okay?
So let's go ahead and go to 1080p, 30 frames per second in its narrow field of view, all right? Okay, here we are shooting 1080p, 30 frames per second, and I am in its narrowest field of view. Again, this camera, and the reason why I'm shooting like this as opposed to shooting like this is because they're advertising this camera as the perfect vlogging camera. So I figured, why not represent it as they represent it, as a vlogging camera, and show you guys what it would look like if you were using this for vlogging. And even though I don't vlog, you know, so don't ding me on that. I'm not a pro at showing you how to do that, but I can frame it up like those of you who are going to use it to vlog with are going to frame it up. And this will give you an idea just what it's going to look like for you. So now what we're going to do is we're going to drop to 720p, 60 frames per second, and we'll let you see what that looks like. And then we're going to go to 1080p, 120 frames per second, and do a spin, slow that down, and then we're going to go to 720p, 240 frames per second, do a spin and slow that down. So let's go ahead and drop to 720p. All right, we are now shooting at 720p, 60 frames per second. So you could slow this down. I'm not going to. I'm going to save that for the 240 frames per second. The one thing I've noticed about the Akaso camera, and there were a couple other cameras that I reviewed, the 720p actually looks pretty darn good. So you guys can see I'm shooting in 720p, 60 frames per second. Is it something you would use, you know, out biking or something like that, out in the wilderness? I'll let you guys see what it looks like out there. So there's the mountains and all that. Let's say we were going by a vehicle. So that gives you an idea what it would look like, you know, if you were out riding your bike or something like that. But again, this camera was pushed more in line with those out there that are vlogging. So that's what I'm gonna try to represent most in this video, is the whole vlogging aspect of this camera. So what do you say we go ahead and switch to the really high frame rates, and we try to find something and do some really cool slow motion footage. Okay, we are now shooting in 1080p, 120 frames per second, and I thought this would be a good slow motion shot. I'm gonna go ahead and spray water on the flowers. Okay, now next we are going to try 720p at 240 frames per second. Okay, we are now shooting 720p in 240 frames per second. I should really be able to slow this down, so let's go ahead and see what this looks like. So what I'll do is I'll slow that down a little bit at first, then I'll slow it down as far as I can slow it down. And let's just see what that looks like. All right, there you have it. I hope that gave you a good idea of all the different angles that you can shoot from with this camera, and kind of give you an idea of what the video quality looks like on this camera. I can't wait to slow that down in post and see how good the slow motion works, because I do know that this camera does really nicely in slow motion. Good, great. Again, this is not the most optimum day to do any videoing. Look at that sky. It does look crappy. Now, one thing I did want to mention, the front-facing screen, you can't change anything from the front-facing screen. So every time you want to change something, you have to switch back to the rear-facing screen. Also, whenever you change to a very high frame rate, anything over 60 frames per second, you are going to lose your image stabilization. And when you do, like when you're done doing what you're doing, you know, like slow motion footage, whatever, and you go back to like 1080p, 30 or 60 frames per second, or even 4K 30, you are going to have to go back into your settings and turn back on your image stabilization. It's you know, I wish Akaso would have, you know, that built right into it, that when you're done doing slow motion or you're done on your frame rates, as soon as you go back to a slower frame rate that supports image stabilization, you know, that it automatically turns back on. But it's okay, you just have to remember you're not gonna have image stabilization. And that's the reason I had to redo this whole demonstration of all the different video aspects, because I lost my image stabilization. And I forget exactly where I did, and I wanted to go ahead and redo all of them. That way I knew for sure which ones had it and which ones didn't. I will tell you all that I am really liking this camera. I can't find anything other than the audio that I don't like about the camera. You know, and them other little niggly things I talked about, you know, like it not going back. Whenever you switch, you have to make sure all of the settings that you want or that you were using previously, you have set or turned back on. So that's going to be it. Let's go ahead and close this video down. Remember, I'm going to be doing, in my next video, we're going to be going through this camera and I'm going to be showing you every single setting in it. So that one's going to be a longer video, but it will let you all know how to use this camera and kind of turn you into semi-pros, even though I'm nothing of the sort. So let's go ahead and finish this video up. Well, everybody, thank you all for watching. I hope you got something out of this. My final thoughts for the Akaso Brave 7LE is I really like the camera a lot. Now, it does have some shortcomings. I'm not going to try to snowball you on that, because again, I like to try to give you guys a you know, a review and give you my honest opinion. And again, this was not given to me by the company. I purchased this myself. As far as video quality goes, I love it. As you can see in this video, it really does look good. I mean, it looks as good as my other Akaso action camera, and as you guys know, that's my favorite camera as far as it goes for the cheap action cameras that I own. Now, as far as it goes for, you know, my GoPro or this, I gotta go with my GoPro. I mean, you know, my GoPro hands down is a better camera than, you know, any of these, you know, by far. But again, this is a $400 camera. This is a $130 camera. So, you know, and you can find these on sale sometimes for as little as $99. Usually those sales only last for about a week and then they go right back up again. But again, at the most $130, and this camera is an outstanding camera. I mean, all you have to do is look at the video that I have uploaded in this video here to see for yourself. Now, one thing I do want to say about the conditions that we were shooting in, we were getting a little bit of overcast, you know, but this camera seemed to do pretty good as far as it goes for overcast. Now, if I had to bring up one thing that I really disliked about this camera, and that was audio. The audio on this camera, in my opinion, is completely unusable. Now, I did pull out my Akaso V50 Pro. I did pull out its microphone, which is right here, and this is an Akaso microphone. It says Akaso right somewhere, right there. It says Akaso right on it. There, see, it says Akaso. And I thought, okay, well, this will work because the ports in this camera here have, USB ports in it. But again, the ports that are in here do not match the old style USB 2 port that's on this one right here. They just don't match up. So, external microphone, well, the one for the Akaso V50 Pro will not work with it. Now, will they come out with a microphone for it eventually, or do they have a microphone for it? I don't know. I haven't seen one, and I did look for one, and I didn't see one. So what I would do is what I did in this video, and that is get yourself a portable audio recorder like this. This here is my Zoom H1N audio recorder, and it does an outstanding job. And for just a hair, and for about $100, sometimes you can get these on sale for about $80, and then another $19 for a Sony lapel mic like what I have on right here. You have audio as good as what you're hearing right now from my Blue Yeti microphone. And my Blue Yeti microphone has an outstanding sound. For a USB type microphone, this thing sounds great. So, final thoughts, I still say at this point in time, I am definitely still highly recommending this camera. You can use this camera as is, right like this, in the rain. None of the other cheap action cameras you can do that with. Now, you can't submerge it underwater. It says right on their website, if you're going to take it underwater, under water pressure, you need to put it in this waterproof case. But if you're going to be out in heavy rain, this will work great. If you're going to be at the beach and the waves are splashing you, this thing will work great. Just basic moisture, stuff like that, it is definitely sealed against, that. Other than that, I like the controls on it, and the biggest thing that I like about this over my Akaso V50 Pro is the front-facing screen. If you're going to if you need a camera, a cheap camera for a vlogging camera, this is it. This thing is great. You figure the cost of this and then the cost of the Zoom H1 and the Sony microphone, you're looking at about $250. And to buy like my Canon M50, which is right there, that's $500. You can get them used for about $400, maybe $350, and then you got to buy a microphone for it and all that stuff. This, a lapel mic and a Zoom H1, you've got yourself a nice little vlogging rig. Okay, on my next video, I am going to delve into all the controls on it. So we're going to go in, I'm going to show you the settings in it, and I'm going to show you all the different ways you can change it. We're also going to do a video sample of all the different special video modes that you can do, like black and white, sepia, all that. And just to let you guys know, and I think I mentioned it in the beginning of the video, I had everything on their neutral settings, which is, nothing added. It's just straight, in and out kind of thing. Other than that, the only other thing I wanted to bring up was I am almost right at the 3,000 subscriber mark now. And when we hit 5,000 subscribers on this channel, and I know that's not a lot compared to other YouTube channels, but for me, that's a pretty good milestone. When we do that, I'm going to be having a giveaway of this Sony T6i digital camera. And I'm going to be letting the lens go with it. It is an 18 to 55 kit lens. It's the lens that came with the camera, and I'm going to let it go with the camera. So you're getting a camera and a lens. I don't have a bag or anything like that. Now, the only thing about this camera that I will bring up right now is the external mic port on this. For some reason, I can't plug external mics in and get them to work. I don't know why. But the microphones on the camera itself, they work just fine. So, again, I don't actually use the audio from the microphones I have on my cameras. I usually use my Zoom and my Sony mic right here. So that's what I would recommend. Record your audio separately and just dub over it, but still, you're still getting a super duper camera. This thing shoots 1080p, 60 frames per second, so you can do slow motion in this. It does not do 4K, but still, the 1080p and the dual pixel autofocus and all that is just phenomenal. It's a great camera. But I have my 90D, I have my M50, and to be honest with you, with my Sony camera that I got for Christmas from my wife, I don't need any other cameras. I use basically my Sony camera and my 90D for almost all the videos that I make now. So this thing's just been sitting around collecting dust. I do have, I think, 4 or 5 batteries for it. At least 3, I know for a fact, and they'll be going with it as well. So that is going to be a giveaway again. That will be happening whenever I hit the 5,000 subscriber mark. So, you know, if you guys can, share my videos. Get the word out, you know. Alright guys, I just want to thank you all for watching, and if you're new to the channel and you like what you saw, think about subscribing. It does help me out, and I do want to say again, thank you to all of you who have supported me from the start. You guys are freaking awesome. I appreciate each and every one of you. I am going to do a comments, and I'm going to be doing a questions and answer video. Again, I think I announced that on my last video. On my last video, I'm going to be looking at the comments section, and I'm going to be looking at the comments section on this video as well. And as soon as I get enough questions asked, I will go ahead and do a video where I read the questions and then answer them on a video for you guys. So, with that being said, I think I'm done. This is the 4th time I had to record a closer for this video. The first time video got screwed up. Second time my audio got screwed up. The third time audio again. I mean, I'm just having a hell of a day. So hopefully this time everything goes great. So with that being said, I just want to thank you all again, and we will see you on the next one.